One TV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated GE. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Welcome to Kikao, your weekly guide on Africa's agriculture. My name is Joe Agayon. Now on this week's show, we talk about agriculture itself. It has been described as the backbone of many economies across the continent. But what exactly will it take for agriculture to work? We'll be answering those questions in a moment with our weekly panel. But first, here is a scene setter for you.
We cannot have the success of the last 2 decades in the next 2 decades if we don't continue to spend more in agriculture. This is not the time to stop or to reverse. First. Second, for the first time over the last few years, the pace of growth has slowed down significantly to the extent that actually per capita growth has almost gone close to zero. That's not how we can continue the progress. What do we need to do in terms of investment, in terms of policies? And we have to do things better. Not just differently, but better than we have done in the past. That will take us to continue to raise investment as we've done from 2000 to 2020, or at least late 2010s. We have to continue to do that. We have to continue the reforms to create a space for the private sector, to invest in the technology systems that help us win future battles in the global markets, whether it's digitalization, whether it's AI, whether it's biotechnology, big data. These are things where we can innovate and compete with the rest of the world.
So that's a glimpse of what the sector looks like right now. But for a deeper conversation, let's now join Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of the AATF, for a more detailed conversation with his panel for the week.
Agriculture is the most important sector for sub-Saharan Africa's economic development. The sector is responsible for more than 60% of the region's employment and is linked to other development outcomes, from women's empowerment to nutrition and health. As the region continues its path of development, agriculture will inevitably be among the main drivers of growth and progress, even as Africa's leaders are intensifying efforts to find sustainable solutions to hunger and poverty and improve the performance of the sector. In this episode of Kikao, we will discuss this critical question of how do we make agriculture work for Africa. I'm your host, Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of AATF. And my guests today are Dr. Emma Naluima, the founder, Animal Care Center, and 2019 Africa Food Prize laureate, and Miss Betty Kiplagat, Government and Industry Affairs Lead, Africa and Mid-East's Corteva Agri-Science. You are welcome. It is often said that Africa's agriculture is not on track. You will hear it from everywhere, especially when it comes to SDGs or other commitments. If it is so, why is it out of track?
80% of Africa's agriculture is done by smallholder farmers. But many a times, when we are speaking about agriculture, they're kind of left behind. I'm lucky that I'm one of them, so I'm a smallholder farmer. But then many of them are left behind, or we discuss the context. We discuss all these things out of context. We don't really engage, really go down deep to find out exactly what is happening. There could be something very interesting, something very nice, a very good, I'll give an example. I was with my colleague and we're discussing something to do with improving pig farming. And then I think in this here you're planning, the project they were discussing was about bringing drones so that they can deliver semen. Very good. So we are looking at the delivering semen to the farmers, but then we are not actually looking, are the farmers ready? Do they even know when a pig is on heat? Do they know when to call this person to say, we need, my pig is on heat, so please deliver the semen for me. So these are things that we need to go back. So the science and everything, all these innovations, the policies are very good, but sometimes the people to receive them, actually the people doing the work at the grassroots, are not contacted or are not really given the information on time.
Yes, there is like a gap between the farmers and the policymakers. Do you have some ideas, Betty, on what else could be the reason why our agriculture is not on track?
We make policies in Parliament, be it at the county level government, be it at the national level government, and we decide we're going to regulate A, B, C, D. But even as we're looking at regulating A, B, C, D, perhaps it could be a technology challenge. And we decide we're not going to allow our farmer access to that technology, but we haven't talked to that farmer. There's a misconception that our farmer doesn't understand a lot of issues. But I think actually the contrary. Our farmers are very well aware. They just need to be included in conversations so that when they're making policy, you're bringing them to the table. I'm not saying you're going to do public participation for everything, but is there a way we can go to the, you know, to the county level, to the smallholder farmers communities and look at champions, bring in champions, talk to the champions. Let this champion be the person who communicates on behalf of the community. So just as Emma says, there's a challenge. There's maybe East Coast fever in that region. And the farmers perhaps do not know. They know that that's the problem, but then whoever is in government decides it could be something else. Nobody's listening to the voice of that farmer. So even as you're trying to say agriculture is our mainstay, really it's not our mainstay. We've just scratched it. We haven't even started using it as a mainstay. Is what we are using to unfortunately not empower people, to keep people at a certain level. We need to bring them to the table. We have so many retired extension officers, agricultural officers in the communities that we live in. What are we doing with them? How can we bring them?
To support the farmers in that quest to improve agriculture and the farming industry in general. Yeah, I think there is a lot to say. And here out, and even in all circles, they say agriculture in Africa needs to be transformed. What are the key factors that would drive that transformation of the agriculture sector and make it work for African farmers and other people, the consumers, and in the value chain we have so many players. But as long as agriculture is broken into pieces and there are so many gaps, of course, it will not work for them. What are the key factors that we need to take into account for the transformation of the agricultural sector in Africa?
First of all, we need to, like you said, we need to look at the context. I was in one of the side events, and we are talking about agriculture, and we want to improve it, but we've forgotten the, like, our comparative advantage in terms of take, for example, in Uganda, we have the best pineapple in the world. It tastes so nice. But then it's a fruit that has just been left there for you. Okay, we enjoy it when everyone comes to Uganda, but no one has really gone ahead even to say, how do they grow it better? How do they preserve it? How, you know, all these things. And then also there are these foods like maybe the yam, the cassava. You know, there are some forgotten foods, food that is out there that we actually, even the farmers can relate to, and they can actually use it because they've grown up knowing this food and knowing how to do it and how to eat it, how to prepare it. But then for some reason, yes, tech has come in, everything has come in, and then we're like, okay, we need to export this, we need to export this. But it doesn't make sense exporting when the people are still here actually languishing and hungry and not really doing exactly what they understand best.
You talked about two very critical things. First of all, our comparative advantage. What do we have in our societies? Have we forgotten that we have some resources, indigenous resources, that we would take as the foundation and build upon them in terms of improving them as for the pineapple, for example? We have germplasms in this continent that we tend to forget and then bring imported ones. So I think, yeah, it is very critical. And then how do we change our system, education system, so that people who are trained as agronomists, breeders, and what, come out of the university with some hands-on capabilities, some effort to look for solutions to improve the situation in their areas. Let us take a break, and when we come back, we will continue and see if there is something which has happened, something positive in this continent.
This is the best serum I've ever used.
9 out of 10 agree Garnier Even and Matte Vitamin C Serum is the best they've used. Our highest concentration of derm actives.
Made my skin tone more even. Brightens up my skin with an instant glow.
Bye-bye, dark marks. Even and Matte Vitamin C Serum. 9 out of 10 agree it's the best serum they've used by Garnier, naturally.
Lakini vile hii ekonomi imetufinya, ilinibidi kubadilisha sabuni nikatumia ingine rahisi. Bala, ilibidi nioshe kila kitu mara mbili. Sikuwa na otherwise, nikarudia Ariel.
Ariel, usafi bora kwa mwosho mmoja tu.
This is the best serum I've ever used.
9 out of 10 agree Garnier Even and Matte Vitamin C Serum is the best they've used. Our highest concentration of derm actives.
Made my skin tone more even. Brightens up my skin with an instant glow.
Bye-bye, dark marks. Even and Matte Vitamin C Serum. 9 out of 10 agree it's the best serum they've used by Garnier, naturally. Welcome to Kikao. When we were talking of factors which could help transform our agriculture, I saw Betty, she had something burning.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, working in the public sector, what ails our public research system at the moment, and I'm not criticizing them, but I'm seeing an opportunity for them to grow. It's been the tradition where we're just doing research so that not to address a problem, but if you look at the developed countries, what they do research to address a problem.
Yeah.
Okay? So nobody is really taking their time to go, as Emma said, to the community. What is the challenge? Then coming back to do research to address that constraint. And I think things will also start turning around when we start looking at researching to actually solve a problem, instead of just research because at the end of the day I'll get paid. So we need to really make our scientists feel more excited about what they do. And I know they have passion, and I know they love what they do. But there's been this tradition within the public sector, publish or perish. So it's if you have a PhD, you want to publish because you don't want to disappear from that scene. What will motivate you to go out there and solve a problem?
But we painted a bit the agricultural sector environment as one with those key issues which are slowing down our progress. Can you tell me if we have some successes in which area, and how can we build on them to transform this agriculture? Even locally, do we have some success stories?
I'm a living example. I'm a living example of that success story. And going it's a success story in terms of what Betty has just said. Now, this morning, a friend of mine called me. I did my master's in health services research. Then he calls me, he's like, hey, you don't seem like you're in Uganda. I'm like, yeah, I'm out of the country. I've come for this summit. And he's like, what does someone who did health services research, what are you doing out there in agriculture? And I'm like, okay, first of all, my background is agriculture, is vet related. And then, yes, I may not publish, but I have a lot of things on my farm that actually academic and publishable material. I may not publish, but I left my farm open for other people who are interested to publish, for other students who are coming. Right now, as I talk, I have 6 interns at the farm. My farm is 1 acre, but I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none, but I love it that way. It helps me do so much. And then I still opened it up to other farmers. And then we've given a lot of information. I'm the go-to person. I proudly say I'm the go-to person when it comes to pigs. And so many people come to you and ask about pigs, and we've given out all this information. A long time ago, actually, you could not talk about a pig. But I make my cash cow is a pig, and I make a lot of money. And I tell people, if I don't talk about a pig, I'll have done a disservice to it, because it has made me make a lot of money. But how have I been able? I've been successful that maybe I went to school, and I'm using my knowledge to make sure that it's making me make money, but then I'm helping very many other people by disseminating and giving them all this information.
Let's take a break. And then when we come back, we will continue our discussion and see what are the role of other stakeholders. Welcome to Kikao. Here we are seeing the role of each of the stakeholders, the farmers, but also others. I want you to emphasize the role of the private sector in this effort of transforming the agricultural sector in Africa and make it work.
I think the private sector has come in to play a big role. I think in even just changing and pushing and engaging the government in bringing in technologies that perhaps would take so long and expensive for us at the moment to do in Africa. Remember, if we look at the biotechnology landscape, if we look at new PBIs, which are plant breeding innovations that are coming from the private sector. Look, we have crops such as cassava, we have crops such as sorghum. Those perhaps are not crops that the private sector is working on, but they do have technology that they could donate or work with partners such as the AATF to bring in those technologies to try and use them within the African space.
Yes.
But for them to do that, of course, it's developing public-private partnerships. We'll look at the space of intellectual property. Do we have the right intellectual property mechanisms? Do we have the right research facilities? Do we have the right regulatory landscape? Okay, and what does that do even as the private sector comes in and starts asking those questions or trying to say, you know what is interesting, private sector will not bring this technology to you. It's you'll find Striga has been a challenge. So you'll find the national research organizations reaching out to private sector and asking, do you have any technology that might help us in trying to address? So we bring in this technology, but we say, what is your regulatory framework? What does that do? It starts helping you look at your regulatory landscape. So you get into a partnership.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I think technologies have been developed. The private sector has a number of them which can address many of the issues that we have, but we need an enabling environment at country level to enable that technology to really be used in a safe way by the farmers. And I think it is the government's effort, but also our effort to create awareness, to advocate for this, to show that it's safe, so that the environment can be conducive for us to adopt technologies that have made other parts of the world successful. Emma, you shared your experience. Can you tell me the role a common farmer, an ordinary one, has in this transformation pathway as we look at solutions to make agriculture work for the continent?
The role of this farmer is to be proactive and receive, like Betty has said, the technologies that have been put out there for them. But they can only do that if they're given information, or if they're actually approached earlier, such that as you bring this innovation, they really understand, they know that it's going to. I'll give you an example. With all the biotechnologies around, so in Uganda we have banana bacterial wilt, but people won't take it because they're like, they're skeptical. You want to take away our natural banana.
Yeah,
but and you don't blame them because they've not actually been given this information. They've not been disseminated to. They've not been told that, you look here, this actually works. This is going to help us. This is going to do ABCD. And this because maybe the researchers, the government, the policymakers didn't go to them.
Did not
first.
give the right information. Betty, tell me, 30 years ago or almost, in Malabo, in Maputo, in wherever, there were days commitment, high-level commitment on transformation of agriculture and make it work and everything. What should we do, all of us, to fast-track those good things and scale up the successes that we have at individual or farmers' scale, so that we can create the impact which was aimed at by those commitments by the head of state?
So we need to go back and implement the Malabo Declaration, because that was a declaration where governments gave commitments that they're going to commit 10%. Once we get our own funding and dedicate that money for agricultural research and then for agricultural development to address issues such as market access, land use. Now we have come up with a new problem. We've got climate challenges. We've got soil challenges. And all those are local problems. But you need that 10% from the GDP to be given to the Minister of Agriculture, not for salaries, but to develop the agricultural sector, to make sure that it works. And once you make sure it works, make sure there's market access. Let's not take our coffee from Kenya, from Rwanda, raw to the US. Yes. We are not making money. We need to start looking at agriculture as a business. So we will never develop the agricultural sector if the money that is being put in my pocket is $1.25, yet my coffee is going to sell for $100 and something.
Yeah, I think it has been a very good discussion. We can say that to make agriculture work, it requires a number of very dedicated actions. And those go from research intended to address the issues to the deployment and access to those technologies, but also to the change of mindset of the farmers and other players, the private sector and the others, so that we can work towards one direction. Obviously, we will need another Kikao with you ladies so that we can again dive deeper into this question and